Verma is a courageous and deeply insightful founder of Victim to Victor, a platform dedicated to healing, resilience, and empowerment. Anna's personal journey through childhood abuse and cultural silencing led her to become a fierce advocate for survivors. Her best-selling memoir, Victim to Victor, chronicles her transformation from trauma to triumph, while her podcast of the same name opens honest, healing conversations about overcoming adversity. Anna combines her personal story with professional experience in mental health advocacy, bodywork, and trauma recovery. She's certified in NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, Reiki, and fitness instruction, drawing on a holistic toolkit to support others in reclaiming safety, intimacy, and connection. Through her work, Anna creates space for others to feel seen, heard, and ultimately free. Welcome to the Intimacy Inquiry. You're incredibly welcome, and thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And I've got a lot of questions, but I promise not to ask all the ones I've got in my mind. But I think I guess the first place I have to start for the audience is, I know it's a hard place, but if you could take us back a little bit just to explore and understand a bit about your formative and teenage years, who you were and what your life was like then.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on and to be able to share my light and my journey with your audience is an absolute blessing. So thank you so much. So the reason why I'm here today is because that I had a bit of a turbulent childhood. I was sexually abused from the age of 3, and it was actually somebody who lived in our household. He was a tenant. And it did carry on for many, many years until I was old enough to actually even mention it to an auntie, because up until that point, I just thought it was a game. You just don't know any different. But then I started to realize that something wasn't right. And so I opened up about it. And immediately, the tenant was then asked to leave. And he left. There was literally nothing happened to bring him to justice. He just left. And I guess I was then left to pick up the pieces throughout my whole life. And I did that, over the years, in my teenage years. I just grew up with little self-worth, little self-esteem. I didn't think anything of myself, and I was just a very suppressed and very lonely and sad girl growing up. So when I reflect back at my early years, I don't really see any happiness, which is quite sad. When you think they should be the happiest years of our lives, because we don't have any responsibility. And then, unfortunately, that also impacted me in my adulthood as well, because I then didn't respect myself or my body. And I just thought that my body was up for grabs for anybody. And so I would literally just give myself to anybody who wanted it, because for me, it was how I felt validated. It was how I felt needed by somebody. And I couldn't associate what love was. And I never even associated love with intimacy. I just thought those two were just totally different things. So that then also impacted my ability to have healthy relationships. And so I ended up attracting very toxic partners into my life. And then they just damaged me more. I was just stuck in this trauma cycle of just attracting the wrong people into my life, who then were abusing me and taking advantage of me and manipulating me, controlling me. And it was only really when I got to my early 30s that I started to uncover that things weren't right. And I'd already tried to end my life 3 times up to that point. But at the time, it was just something that was quite reckless. Like I'd try and jump off a balcony when I was on holiday, but then I ended up hanging there because, there wasn't anywhere to jump, and I was hanging off like the second floor balcony. But then people just assumed that I was just crazy, the crazy girl. And it's only when you realize during your healing that, that's because I was suffering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a real thing. It's a real deal. So I did eventually start to heal. And a lot of the healing that happened was during the energy work that I was doing with my healer at the time. And that was like Reiki and emotional freedom therapy, and also like hypnotherapy. So it was always the spiritual practices that really benefited me. It wasn't the counseling that the doctors were trying to recommend, because every time I'd leave a counseling session, I just felt worse because we weren't tackling childhood stuff. We were just tackling what was happening at that time.
Mm.
And so it was just making me feel worse because we weren't going to the root of the issue. So it did take time for me to really understand what happened. And yeah, I think I was 33 when I started to really accept that, that I had actually been sexually abused. And so by the time I hit like 37, I started to write. And then 2 years later, I actually had a book ready, which was totally not planned. It was literally just my life journey. And then I was just looking at what I had written, thinking this could really help other people to understand about their own life journeys. At the time, I still wasn't fully healed. So I do feel that writing really was a transformative experience for me as well, because rather than just putting blame on everybody for hurting me, I was then able to really acknowledge the different events that had happened through my life, and what was the learning from that? What was the growth from each of those experiences? And I do feel that that's what we need to do in life, rather than blaming people, blaming our perpetrators. You have to ask, why did God put me in that situation? Why did the universe allow this to happen? And I
Mm.
do believe that it was to strengthen me and to make me the resilient being that I am today. And so, yeah, I guess that's my life journey in a summary or a nutshell.
But you answered a lot of questions in one there. Just just to take you back to when you told your aunt, and one thing I guess I take from that as a positive is that at least the family believed you and
Mm,
took action to hopefully stop that particular person abusing you in that particular way. So that's a tick in the positive box, I guess.
mm.
But then you seem to say, well, that was it, really. There was not. And do you think part of that was cultural sensitivity? Do you think it was that they didn't necessarily know how to handle it? Do you think it was just that they thought, okay, we'll put it out of sight, out of mind?
Yeah.
What what did you? Well, first of all, I guess, what did you hope for from your loved ones? And yeah, how did the relationship dynamic shift, I guess, as a result of that not happening?
So at the time, I was a young girl. I didn't know what was going on, so I just accepted that's what you do. You just make sure that you're not exposed to the perpetrators anymore. But I guess
Mm,
growing up, I did feel that I was just left to just get on with it then, brush it under the carpet, like you said. And then I realized that there really was an issue of the fact that my parents didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to handle this situation. And I guess at the time, you're talking like in the 80s as well. And, they'd only just kind of come to the country as well in their teens. So I guess there was
mm,
a lot of cultural sensitivity issues there as well. Also, unfortunately, I hate talking about this, but it's what's happening in India to this day is that, there's still so much sexual abuse. Women are still seen as second class citizens.
yeah.
And I guess it's not so noticeable in the bigger cities, but in the little villages and towns, it is very much so. And so I guess there's also that pigmentation,
Mhm.
implanted into a lot of the brains of in the Asian culture as well, where it's like, oh, just another case of sexual abuse. We just have to move on from it, pretend it never happened. And so I did, I feel like that really did impact on my self worth, because I felt like nobody was really there to protect me or to really, fight for justice for me. And I just felt very alone. And it really did impact on my relationship with my family, where as soon as I hit 18 and I was at a legal age to leave home, I left home. I left home for 20 years. Like I never returned. And that's because I just I always associated my hometown, home city, as, you know, as like a dark place, as a place where I was hurt and I never wanted to return. And so I remember there was just I ran away. I literally did. And then even went traveling. So when I graduated from university, I didn't want to come home, so I decided to travel.
Mhm.
It was only meant to be a 6 month adventure, but it ended up turning into a 16-month adventure. And that's because I didn't want to face coming home. So I just stayed away. And, you know, it obviously it impacted my parents because they kind of thought that, you know, that they'd actually lost a daughter.
Yeah.
And I guess at the time, it's because there was a lot of blame. You know, I was blaming them for not being there for me. When I look back now, and it was very subconsciously I was doing this because at the time I blocked out my abuse, so I didn't even acknowledge that anything was going on. But subconsciously, you know, that's how I was feeling.
Mm.
And again, all of this is literally, it's come in my later years in life when I've reflected back. So yeah, unfortunately there was a lot of blame, and it's taken so many years for me to even accept that, you know, that they weren't to blame. And that, you know, I shouldn't really be pointing a finger at anybody. You know, it was just a situation that happened, and something that was meant to happen in order to make me who I am today. So
You don't feel. I mean, to my mind, there's only one person to blame.
oh
That's
yeah.
the abuser. And so have you forgiven what happened, or like so you accept it as part of your story?
Yeah, I had to, because I do find, and again, forgiveness is something that I've had to work on, because there was majority of my life, you know, obviously I'm talking about when I actually acknowledged what had happened to me in my early 30s. Since then, I had a lot of hate, I had a lot of anger, and you know, I just wanted him to suffer. He'd actually died. We found out he died anyway, so he had a very short life anyway. But I then realized that all this anger that I'm carrying, you know, how dare he put this in me still? You know, he's already took away my innocence and my
Yeah.
dignity, so how dare he still have this impact on me? And that's when I realized what forgiveness is. It's not about them, it's about you being able to move on past the hurt, and for you to not have such negative emotions because of that person. And so that's, to me, what forgiveness is. It's about releasing what no longer is yours. And that anger, you know, it's not mine to carry, it's his to carry. So that, even though forgiveness could be quite, it can be something which isn't very easy for people, I do find that it's the best thing that we can do for ourselves. Yeah.
You must be and have been incredibly strong, even when you might not have felt very strong, to have that recognition about forgiveness. And when I sort of looked at your book, and it is, and I'll put the links into the notes so people can read it, just as a positive warning, I guess. It is very raw, and it is completely your story, and it's a story of vulnerability, I think, more than anything else. But what did you find was the most emotionally difficult part of writing the story, and what did you've already said you gained from writing this, and I guess there's that sort of cathartic element to it, but what was the hardest part, and then what did you discover about yourself?
I guess what I was doing was I was trying to sugarcoat the events. I was trying to not write about the abuse. So I was trying to minimize it.
Hmm.
But then I had this fantastic editor who wanted more detail. She said, "Come on,
Yeah.
you know, you need to write more. You need to write more." And I did. And oof, that was hard. That was hard because, again, when you're writing, it's all acceptance. You know, you're actually accepting what's happened to you. And you're then working on the self-blame, just as you're writing, you're realizing this wasn't even my fault. Why have I carried this blame all my life? So that was hard. And there was also a couple of the suicide events that I wasn't ready to write about, and I never, because I wasn't ready for that, because again, I felt shame. And that's only been over the past few years that I've actually been able to release that shame as well. Because for me, again, I think there's a stigma associated with suicide where people say, oh, they're selfish. And so that's took me a while to understand. No, I was that way. I wanted my life to end because I didn't want to be in this place anymore, where I was mentally, emotionally. It was horrible. It was dark. So that's took me a while. And and I guess that's the only thing that I never wrote about. Everything else I did.
Mm.
Yeah.
It is one of the things in our society. So I've had mental health issues for lots of reasons, and had sort of suicidal ideation, I guess. And I think the thing that a lot of people, do sort of say afterwards or before, "Gosh, it's so selfish." But I think at the time when you're thinking about or even carrying out the act, I think in my mind, it was almost the least selfish thing to do. It was taking me away from this space, so I'm not. So it's best for everybody concerned that I'm just not here anymore. And
Mhm.
it's almost not a case of right, I'm going to kill myself. It's more a case of I just don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. It's a funny is the wrong word, but it is an odd thing, and I think our societal take on suicide attempts or ideation or suicide itself is doesn't necessarily look as deeply or as concerned at what it is really.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when you were going through the healing, and it's really interesting that you said that the healing is most powerful. So I did became a Reiki master a few years ago, and I found it very like a lot of things that are positive in life.
Yeah.
If you can't explain it, it's probably very very good. I could never explain it. Just this feeling and this wow, this is extraordinary.
Wow.
And and I found, and again when I've been to therapy before, I found that talking about things that have happened, talking about emotions, talking about how I feel, whatever,
Mm.
is very, very much only part of the journey. And I've been exploring much more over the last couple of years, and with this
Mm.
podcast actually, the whole somatic side of things. Now we hold things in our body, and yes, you can talk about things, but you're just talking about things, and you get to a point where you talked about this, you've heard me, I've said what I've got to say,
Yeah.
and how do I it's almost okay, we've got all this out there, now we can start to heal.
Yeah.
But so often the therapy sort of stops there. It's like, well, okay, I've done therapy now. I think,
Yeah.
but I can still feel it physically
Yeah.
in my gut, in my shoulder, whatever. There's that sort of somatic element to it.
Mm.
So did you find when you found that part of healing, it's where you could look at intimacy in particular to mean something different? So from something that was quite distant to something that became more meaningful?
Yeah. Yeah. Intimacy has been something which has been quite difficult for me to understand, because just getting close to anybody at an
Mm.
emotional level, being intimate with someone, felt so dangerous, felt so distrusting, as in, like, how can I trust these people to be so vulnerable with them and to give myself to them? So that really did affect relationships where I couldn't have healthy relationship dynamic. So part of the healing has been for me to feel safe in my body again, because by feeling safe in my body, it means that I can then allow people in and not have my guard up all the time, which is the ego. And that is something that I've had. People used to just think, "Oh, wow, she's so egotistical," because I'd just say and act very harshly, and
Yeah.
just like I'm above everybody else. But that was just an act. It was literally a front. That's not the true me. And it's only the people real close to me who know, the truth about who I am. So I did give off the wrong impression to, and because of that as well, I was attracting the wrong people. And it was equally like egotistical partners as well that were coming into my life as well. So by being intimate with them, no way, there was no way I felt safe with them, because I wasn't the truth, to me, wasn't I? I wasn't who I should be. I was putting on a persona, so how can I then let anybody in? So it was just a recipe for disaster. And so intimacy is something that I'm still learning as I go along. I just find it's an evolution. There's no way, when people say, "Oh yeah, I'm healed," I just don't believe them because I don't feel you can be fully healed
Yeah.
because there's always going to be situations that arise and challenges that you have to overcome. And then what happens is, you get triggered, or you get back into the space that you were when you felt unsafe, and so you have to then process and work through things again. Yeah, so intimacy isn't just what we see about two couples getting close. To me, it's a lot deeper than that.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people confuse intimacy with sexuality or something different. And you can have an incredibly intimate relationship with your colleagues at work, you can have an incredibly intimate relationship with your family, with your children, whatever. And I think intimacy is just to me, it's a place of comfort and respect and trust, all of which are incredibly powerful words. And I think intimacy is something very, very different. And if we're lucky, we're intimate with a few people in our lives that really know us inside out. Did you have a sort of rule of thumb as to when you told people about the past, or did you just not tell people?
I guess it comes up a lot now because
Yeah,
people, like, yeah, because people know about my podcast.
people Google you and go, oh, that's just you.
And yeah, so all I need to say is, oh, I'm the author of Victim to Victor. And,
Mhm.
I just say, well, Google it if you want to find out more about me. And I must admit that it does really segregate people as well, because those who are still stuck in the 3D matrix, who haven't really done any self-awareness work,
Mhm.
who still have their traumas that they haven't actually accepted, from the past, then I do find that they can find it quite intimidating when they find somebody like us
Yeah.
who has done the work, who has, who is on a healing journey, and who is self-aware. So I feel like our work can actually segregate us from the majority. So, but it's part of who I am, and I only want those people in my life now who actually can understand my life journey and accept me for who I am, because I'm so vulnerable now. Like, I literally have, like, my ego is just gone, it's shattered, and now I'm just so truth to who I am that that it shows, and I'm not ashamed to admit any mistakes, or I'm not ashamed to admit if I've done something wrong. I literally will just own it and learn from it, and hope to inspire others as well. So that they can do the same. Like my relationship, my with my ex, who was a father of my children. We gave it a shot twice, and it just never worked out. And so I'm very open about it. The fact that we obviously got back together the second time around because we still had some unhealed business. So we had to obviously get back together to heal parts of ourselves that weren't healed before. And so that's how I see that. But again, a lot of people won't understand that. They'll just think it's failure. They'll see it as, oh, loser, she can't make a relationship work. But the way I see it is that we weren't right for each other, and now I'm
Yeah.
making space for somebody right to come along whenever that may be.
It's so much stronger to own that than actually to live in an unhappy relationship, or to, because even though you think, oh, we'll stay together for the kids, all of that negative energy that you're both putting off, it's unavoidable. It impacts people. And I find I hadn't not heard it expressed so well, and I find the same thing. So I find that since I started sort of thinking and doing more about trying to understand who I am, I guess I notice it a lot more now. A lot of people are very, very comfortable with fairly superficial, fairly shallow dynamics, and I'm I'm rubbish at that.
Yeah.
I'm rubbish at if I'm at somewhere and it's sort of small talk. I just want to know things about the person. I want you let's really talk. I have much less patience now. I think in a positive way for people that aren't willing to engage really. And I used to think, oh my goodness, I used to go to, I don't know, there'd be a party or a street party or whatever else, and people say, "God, you always seem to sort of drift off after like half an hour." Someone said, "Oh, that's people just talking about the weather or their dogs or their cats, their pets and things." It's all really interesting, but I just I want to know. And then occasionally, when you do meet a person that has something like that, so like if I've sort of bumped into you and start talking, oh my God, it's the sort of thing. I look at my watch, oh my God, like 6 hours has gone past, and we just talked and talked and talked about things that I've never told anybody this before, and that's when I love it.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, we're not around for that many years in the big scheme of things. This is, at the moment we're in a sort of human manifestation. Our spirit goes on, or whatever you believe in. And I think, well, gosh, if you have those conversations, I really want to talk. I don't want to go through the superficial stuff, which a lot of people are just, oh gosh, no, I'm just on this level. That's what I do. And and it is.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's selfish. I should just sort of chat to people, but
Mm.
not be a chatter. So, but when you do get to meet somebody, we'll have a discussion. It does feel very different.
Yeah. Feels home, doesn't it? When
It
you
does. It just feels that, oh gosh, we're actually talking about stuff that's important. Well, yeah, we're listening to one another. And so I think that's one of the big gaps we have. I think as people now is we really have this massive struggle with listening.
Yeah.
And you see it in conversations, whether it's watching politicians or whatever, anybody just cutting across each other and just not listening. I'm like, if you just listen to what somebody's saying for a little while
Yeah.
and then pause for a second, yeah, okay, and then have a conversation. Because I think we're so used to engaging with social media or different content is just firing at us so quickly. We just don't have that. We're not listening to it. It's just washing over us in a way, and I don't.
So much noise, isn't there?
There really is. There really, really is. Yeah, there is. Wait, so when you wrote the words and you created the book, and the editor was finally happy, and you sort of everything had been released in your soul. What was it a difficult decision? Did you then take the decision? Okay, I think actually this is my calling. This is what I need to do now. I'm going to be doing this work now, not just writing the book.
Yeah.
Did that come at that point or later? And how did it feel when that hit you? It's like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Oh wow! Oh, what a great question! That, yeah, I do feel like that evolved on me, and that was purely because as soon as the book was ready to be released, I underwent some severe depression again because I had this huge feeling of vulnerability, which I hadn't at the time. I didn't have the strength to really deal with it. And so I had to go back into therapy. I also had my healer and I also had a coach. So I needed 3 sources of different support to help me through that. So I felt very vulnerable, and a lot of the traumatic memories were coming back as well. So a lot of the PTSD was coming back. And that's when I had to undergo some real serious work then to really tackle my trauma, and that was upon the release of the book. Crazy, isn't it? What an impact that can have.
No, I think it's in some ways, it's sort of psychologically. I can imagine walking on the street and thinking, "Gosh, everybody knows me now.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard my story. Everybody's seen my darkest times. Everybody's seen what I might perceive to be weakness. Everybody knows. Everybody's talking about me. Absolutely,
Yeah.
because it's suddenly out there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And you want it to be out there. You want everybody to have seen it, but you don't want them necessarily to point at you in the streets.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And obviously I was getting loads of messages saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you. If only I knew." And then I had so much sympathy and, people understanding, "Oh, that's why you were so crazy. We get it now." And it's like,
That's why you were so crazy. Yeah, thanks. It's sort of like that's quite a backhanded compliment, isn't it? Really?
I know, I didn't know how to take it. But
No.
I'm just like, well, in a way, that's quite relieving that people get it,
Yeah.
because I was crazy. And even at the time, I didn't realize why. And so yeah, that was healing. Eventually, I healed from that, and then I realized that I was hiding behind my words, and that I still wasn't able to talk about it. So I started a podcast. So my first kind of 30 episodes or 35 episodes was just me talking about different issues that I wanted
Mm.
to talk about to help me to really heal and to start to understand the terminology around things. And then I started invited guests on, and again, that was a huge healing journey, actually talking about stuff. And I realized that I was then able to talk about a lot of the traumatic events without feeling so distressed.
Mhm.
So that was a huge awakening for me as well. And so, yeah, talking does help.
I often think when somebody puts out a book that is very that focuses on a particular set of circumstances, and other people might have an affinity with it in certain ways.
Mm,
And the thing I worry about, I guess, for the author often
mm,
is I assume, terrible word to use, but that a lot of people almost see you putting those words on paper as permission for them to then tell your story, tell you their story, and how able were you at that time to read, listen, see stories I'm sure were incredibly traumatic in their own way? Because you want to give them space, but you certainly don't want to. It doesn't do you any favors or them for you to then carry their trauma as your own as well.
yeah.
How were you in a place there where you could hold a space for a period of time and then release it again, or did you find the weight of other people's stories quite hard?
Yeah. I think I was able to do that. I remember the first few episodes, I was getting quite tearful listening to some of the stories.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I started trauma training as well. And
Hmm.
so part of that, I had supervision. And I felt like that all just came at the exact right time, because I was then able to talk about stuff with my supervisor, who was trained to handle situations like that. So yeah, support is everything. I feel even with a podcast, it is like being a
Yeah.
therapist. So I feel like
Yeah.
you probably do need your own support as well to talk things through, so that you don't absorb it all.
Mm.
That's important. Yeah.
So using the techniques of NLP and Reiki and
Mm.
body movement and things, how do you feel about those in terms of supporting emotional safety and the value that they bring beyond therapy? And this is not to diss therapy, because a lot of people, it works. It's very practical for singular events and things. But I do think there is absolutely something in our somatic cells, our bodies, and what we do. So how do you embrace those as part of what you do?
I just feel like embodiment. My embodiment training was really key to my practice today, and that's
Mhm.
purely because the body does keep the score. And so we can do all sorts of work for our mind and our emotions, but then what's happening in our body? Are we really understanding where the pain is held? Are we understanding where there's blocks?
Yeah.
Because blocks are huge. You will find in someone who has trauma that a lot of their chakras will be blocked. And that's purely because of protection. The
Hmm.
body's trying to protect you from
Mm.
any harm. And that's why we stay in a freeze flight, in a fight, flight, or freeze response as well,
Yeah.
because we're just in this state of shock, like damage control. It's like the amygdala, which is our kind of hypersensitive part of the brain, and it's not able to reason. And
Mm.
so this is why the therapy is good, because it helps you to really talk about the events so that they become more logical, and you can really reason with them. And that's what the prefrontal cortex does, so it uses that part of our brain. And journaling and writing is really good for that as well. But I also am very big on like affirmations and gratitude. I just think it's what we feed ourselves daily, we become. So by just having even, some affirmations that pop up on your reminders, like every 2 or 3 hours on your phone, just reminds you that, that you are loved, you can do anything that you want to, and that you are safe. So affirmations are really key for our healing, and just try to find something to be grateful for. And that was hard for me because
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything. I was like, what is there to be grateful for? Because everything's just bad. The whole world is bad. And so just by having like the smallest things. And for me, what helped was just thanking, the universe or God for the fact that I even woke up in the morning. As simple as that was really beneficial. So that's, these are just like little techniques that I like to teach. And also you said a big one, which was safety. That's a huge part of any trauma healing work, because part of safety is having boundaries, when to say no to people, and not over giving, because part of like a trauma response is that we will overgive, and we'll try to people please in order to gain people's validations, to feel accepted. And so that's because we don't feel safe in our bodies. So just by having some rituals and practices, which can help you to feel safe in your body, is also key. So yeah, I guess it's just a matter of building like self-trust, and not just communication. It's just kind of trusting yourself again.
Mm.
Mm.
Which is a yeah. It's funny you say that. It's just hearing you say that. I think actually it's often a lot easier to trust, even on a relatively superficial level, somebody else than it is to trust yourself.
Mm.
Because if you're trusting yourself, you really are fully committing that, aren't you? Because there's no, because you can't, you sort of, well, how can I be proved wrong if I'm not, do I break my own trust? What does it look like? But,
That's
and listen to you talking about the body and the alignment and all those things, it does, and I don't know whether this is just because I've been looking more, but it does feel that we are slowly, as parts of society, starting to recognize that a lot of things that have been in different parts of the world for thousands of years
mm,
have got huge value today. So if I look at a lot of development around plant-based medicines and some of the things that some of the research coming out seems very, very positive,
mm,
and a lot of different scientists have had huge knowledge of the power of movement and dance and whatever else as a healing thing, almost like literally like sort of shake it out, literally shaking it out. And I haven't done it. I'm a bit too shy, but a lot of healers really rave is probably the right word, I guess, about ecstatic dancing and just literally letting go of everything. Because I think as children, as small children,
mm,
typically, if you're in a regular household, whatever, the children move around so much and run around and do everything, and then suddenly as adults we sort of stop doing that, and we don't have we move from our bed to our car, to our desk, to our car, to our bed again. Really, we don't have that complete freedom of movement that children have, and they spin around in circles till they fall over dizzy. We never do those things.
mm,
But I think a lots of societies, outside the Western world in particular,
mm.
have recognized this, have embraced it. And I do think, again, I'm not sure because I'm interested in the topic, but it feels that we're starting to slowly see that come into more of a mainstream society now. Does it feel that there's more acceptance now to you?
Yeah, I mean, I see it a lot on social media now, and
Yeah.
I just love it. I mean, dance has played a huge part in a lot of the workshops that I've done as well. And the main reason for it is because, like you said, our inner child just wants to come out. It wants to
Yeah.
come out to
Yeah.
play. And it's also a way for our body to reclaim agency again, to reclaim control. Because,
Mm.
when we are in a trauma state, then, we might be frozen. And so
Mhm.
you find you can't move, you're so rigid because of all,
Yeah.
you're so blocked. So just by moving your body, it just helps to, really release the joints again, and to
Mm.
hopefully unblock you to actually be able to move again. Yeah, because yeah, I remember Tony Robbins said it, that, we live in such a box culture where,
We do.
yeah, you just, we watch our box TV, we're in our box office, in our box
Yeah.
house, in our box car. So
Mm.
just kind of breaking away from that is, it's really essential for us to be human again, not robots.
If somebody asks you what the best moments of your life have ever been, I don't think anybody ever answers watching television, sitting in my car, sitting in my office. They don't, do they? It's always, oh, we had this amazing swim and the sunset was doing this. We had an amazing walk. We did this amazing. So many of the things seem to be outside, which I think is an incredibly powerful entity in itself.
Mm.
But yeah, it's never about the boxes, really.
No, never. Exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah. So what do we remember? We remember the fun times, the
Yeah.
dancing, the gigs that we might have gone to, and
Mm.
just the parties. Oh, yeah, it's all fun stuff, isn't it? And maybe we just need to do more of that.
Well, apparently, I listened to a podcast yesterday. It was talking about the huge value that they found in research of being outside in sunlight for offsetting dementia or putting off dementia. The value of it. And it's not vitamin D; it's actually being in the sunshine is a hugely beneficial. And they were saying that in the UK we spend 92% of our time indoors,
Oh,
which is
wow.
that's a lot. I think, oh gosh, prisoners only get to go outside 1 hour a day. It's like, well, you're outside for less than that. So, especially in winter when we literally go from our house, bundle up to the car, and we never see anything outside really.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the work that you do now, what does what does a typical day or week look like for what you do? What does the work feel like, look like? What does it deliver?
So yeah, I'm doing quite a lot actually. So in terms of like my client work, I have this 12-week coaching program which I work through with my clients, and a lot of it is around just relationships, really, just to feel safe with yourself first of all, so that you can have healthier relationships, because relationships have played a huge part in my life, the evolution of them. So
Yeah.
just by having that experience, I feel it's really benefiting my clients as well. And obviously the majority of my book is about relationships as well.
Yeah.
So I did start off my practice just helping with trauma and PTSD, complex
Hmm.
PTSD. And then I realized that, I was more suited towards helping people with relationships. So I've kind of took a bit of a turning on that only this year. So that's really fulfilling for me, and I'm also a big kind of creative as well, where I'm involved in a couple of movie projects, a bit different. So one of the projects is to do with my own journey as well. So it is a drama,
Yeah.
and that's in development. And then there's another movie which is totally unrelated to my book, sorry, and that's currently in post production. And I guess people just need to follow my socials, and they could keep up to date with my journey. And so yeah, I absolutely love it. And I've got my podcast as well, so I love interviewing different guests, and I love obviously coming on to shows as well. And I love writing. I absolutely, yeah. Whenever there's any challenges that I have to overcome, I'll make sure to write about it, because it just helps, the whole learning of it. And then what I do is I like to create content on social media to help others as well. So yeah, that my days go quite fast, especially.
I can imagine. Yeah, I don't know how you find time to sort of sleep, eat your drink, really. Yeah, yeah. So in the relationships that you look to have today, do you have things that are non-negotiable? Do you have sort of boundaries that you set? And yeah, what does a relationship look like for you today?
Yeah, well, because I've increased my self-worth so much, I literally don't tolerate anybody who devalues me, and that's been a huge setback, as well as a something positive, because it means that anybody who doesn't really value me, or if I don't feel safe in their presence, then I literally won't entertain it. So in a way, I'm sticking to my standards. I'm not going to lower them, but it also makes things very non-negotiable as well. Because let's say somebody does have a bit of an issue where they might be struggling with their own mental health issues, but then they take it out on me. I then have to assess whether that relationship's worth saving or not, dependent
Yeah.
on, dependent on whether this is a reoccurring pattern or if it's just a one-off. So that can really help me, but it can also be a setback, because it means people who I might care about then can't really be part of my life. See what I mean about the non-negotiable? But that's it. I feel like we have to have a certain standard, and people need to understand what your standard is. And the fact that I've got boundaries in place as well, which I never had before, that just means that I'm a lot more, determined to stick to them, and to make sure that I don't over give to anybody, because by over giving, what ultimately happens is burnout. You might suffer from
Yeah.
burnout, and you might just it might really make you feel bad afterwards, because you feel a bit used, or
Mhm.
you might be suffering from resent. So yeah, there's a whole range of different things, that I have to really look out for now in my
Yeah.
relationships, in which I like to help others do the same.
I think you, and I'm sure lots of other people have worked so hard to get to the place where you are
Mm,
that you have to be clear about not putting that at risk, really.
yeah.
It's the same in so many walks of life where you work so hard on something. It's like,
Mm,
I don't know, you're an athlete, you've worked so hard to the Olympic Games, and then the week before you go and gorge on Big Macs or whatever. Why would you put so much effort and work, and what you've been through is so much more difficult to overcome than an Olympic dream. But yeah, why would you put that at risk, really? But I can understand where there's people that don't fit within those boundaries or don't fit within the template you've laid for what a relationship is, and they have to be, yeah, you have to sort of either connect with them on a very superficial level, or they just have to not be part of your life anymore. And
mm.
it's very strong to be able to do that, I think. But I do think it's the only way that you can possibly keep yourself as you are, really.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, absolutely.
If people have a partner, and sometimes people come to the realization that they've been through trauma or been abused quite late in life when they're perhaps in a relationship,
Mm.
and the partner tells them something. What It's very hard, I guess. What should a partner offer? Because I'm like, honest, my wife, my husband's been abused. I really want to be able to help and support, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. What role can a partner play in helping? So the person's obviously been felt strong enough to tell you, which is an incredibly intimate thing to do. But again, you can't just leave it. So what can a partner do to help?
I think it's very important to listen, to be able to be that guardian angel who has the two ears, who can actually
Mm,
listen and not judge. Because I think the worst is when, oh God, and I've had this happen to me so many times by the wrong people, where they'll listen to you and then they'll question it, or they'll minimize it, or as if to say, oh, are you sure, did that really happen? Or they'll minimize it and say, oh yeah, but that happens to a lot of people. Or oh, there's worse cases in life. So
mm,
yeah, I think it's important not to judge, and to really emphasize with the story, the situation, and the person, to really be there for them, to hold compassion and a safe space for them to be open about it. And then to just ask them, that what can I do in this situation? How would you like me to support you? A lot of the times they just want you to listen.
yeah.
But if they want to then seek out for some professional help, or then yeah, definitely help them to research some professional help.
Mm,
Some resources, that even like online resources, can be really beneficial. If they're not ready to talk to anybody, then have watch some videos available on YouTube around it, and you learn a lot, and it really does help.
Can you say that you love yourself today?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. Self-love. Wow, that's took a while to get to this place as well.
Yeah. And does that come along with an ability to recognize that you're worthy of the love of somebody else?
Yeah, definitely. Which is why I'm not settling. I'm not settling for anything less. I literally hold myself quite, at a high standard now. I just feel like when you've overcome so many obstacles in life, and the word overcome, and you're now on the other side, then there's nothing else that can really destroy you. And I just feel that gives you so much power. There's so much strength in that. There's so much power in that, and you've got to really embrace it. You've got to really, feel that, and understand that that's who you are today, and just stand in that power, and don't let anybody ever think of you as anything less. You're a powerful source, and own it.
Mm. You mentioned before that your ex-husband is also the father of your children. Are they of an age where they could read the book, or they understand this, or are they still too young?
Yeah, too young. Yeah, one's 3 and one's 7. So yeah, we'll give them time.
It's hard, isn't it? 'Cause it's out there, and you want to tell them before anybody else happens to tell them.
Yeah,
But it's explaining it in ways that people understand, I suppose.
exactly. Yeah.
Do you think are you incredibly overprotective of them, or is that something you have to sort of fight against?
Yeah, I guess I was at first, but I feel that again, that's been a journey of evolution as well. Just really letting that go, letting
Yeah,
that need for control go, because it's control. And where does that stem from? It stems from fear.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm definitely, not fearful anymore, because I know that the universe has our back, and because I have that belief in God, I believe in the universe, and things work out how they should. I just feel just having a belief really does transform your whole mindset.
One final question. I've taken up a lot of your time. I'm very grateful that you've done it today, particularly.
Okay.
And it's in two parts, really. I guess one is, are you the sort of person that plans for the future? So here's my 3-year plan, 10-year plan, whatever else. And then what? On a slightly more emotional level, what do you feel the future will be like?
I don't really plan. I find when we plan, it kind of can create anxiety as well. Because I mean, it's nice to have a vision board, and it's nice
Yeah.
to have some manifestations
Mhm.
in action,
Mm.
to manifest whatever you want. But I don't know, just having like these rigid goals and stuff, especially when things get in the way and they don't get achieved, it can really affect your mental health, where you feel like a
Yeah.
bit of a failure or a loser for it not happening. So I just feel that, understand what you have, write it down, but believe that things will work out when they're meant to,
Mhm.
when they're meant to unfold. And maybe there's a whole journey you have to go through before something happens, and that's okay, like things take time. Yeah, so we just have to believe in it, have faith.
I know I said it was the last question. That was obviously a lie. Do you think there's a follow-up to the book? A life, not life after it, because it's part of you, but yeah, a book that has a slightly more joyous tone, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I feel like, again, since the book was released, there's so much that's happened in my
Yeah,
evolution that, yeah, I feel like it's something definitely worthy of a book. So, yeah, I will be writing. I just feel I've still got a bit more to learn before I start writing. So,
yeah.
yeah, again, these things take time, don't they?
Well, when you're doing all the things you're doing, films and writing and clients and life and everything else, then yeah, there's only 24 hours in each day apparently.
Exactly.
So it's and I think it's one of those things where it's very much okay, now's the right time for that.
Yeah.
And you might find that time feels right in 6 months or 6 years. It just
Yeah.
because suddenly becomes, yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. I can make sense of how this is all tied together. So
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow! Thank you. Yeah, you've been.
no, thank you so much. Yeah, I'm glad you felt able to go through with it today with
Thank
the
you.
personal issues you've got going on. So yeah, thank you. Hopefully your story resonates with people, and people should definitely read the book. And I'll put links to your website and things on there. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about the film when it comes out.
Oh, thank you so much for giving this space. And you're just such a caring and real empathic host. Wow. Really appreciate it. Thank you.